Welcome to the Brigham Young University Family History Library webinar series. We thank you for joining us today. Feel free to use the chat box for any questions during the presentation, and we'll make sure that they're all answered by the end. My name is Braden Knutson. I'll be your host for this webinar. We'd like to remind everyone that all of these webinars are being recorded and posted on our BYU Family History Library website, as well as onto the BYU Family History Library YouTube channel. We encourage everyone to subscribe to the YouTube channel so you can receive updates for new videos that we post. And we also have an email sign up if you want to receive email updates as well. Today we'll be pleased to hear from James Tanner, who will be giving a presentation titled Untangling the Mess on the FamilySearch Family Tree. James Tanner has a bachelor's degree in Spanish and a master's degree in linguistics from the University of Utah. He received a Juris Doctorate degree in law at Arizona State University. He served for 2 years as an intelligence analyst for the U.S. Army and 39 years as an Arizona trial attorney. He has previously owned a retail computer business and an Apple Macintosh software company. James has over 32 years' experience in genealogical research and is an avid blogger of Genealogy Star blog and Rejoice and Be Exceeding Glad. He served for 10 years as a missionary at the Mesa, Arizona FamilySearch Library and is currently serving at the BYU Family History Library. He has presented at expos and conferences around the U.S. and Canada. James has 7 children and 33 grandchildren. So we'll turn the time over to James now and let him take it away for us.
Here we go. And we're sharing the screen. We're here for another BYU Family History Library webinar, and I'd like to welcome everybody. Also remind everyone that these presentations are recorded and uploaded to our BYU Family History Library YouTube channel, and we'd invite you to subscribe to the channel. We're going to talk today about untangling the mess on the FamilySearch family tree, why it works and why it doesn't. I guess I'm a little presumptuous in thinking that I could tell anybody how to untangle the mess in an hour, but we'll try and do that. First of all, we need to look at FamilySearch.org. So we go to the website of FamilySearch.org, and we need to know what is the FamilySearch family tree. Now, the family tree is a successor to an older program called new.familysearch.org that basically did not work well and was discontinued. But the FamilySearch family tree is a wiki. A wiki is a collaborative program like Wikipedia, where anyone who is registered with the program has some capability of adding information, deleting information, editing, making changes, making notes, all sorts of things with the program itself. And the first question that always occurs to anyone when you begin that explanation and they start to understand what you're talking about, and they say, well, if everyone can get in the program, why isn't it just become a big mess? Well, that's not the reason it is a big mess, but the answer to that question is that goes against human nature. Actually, the way that this works is that the people who are interested in the family tree, meaning primarily family historians, genealogist types who are working on their genealogy, are the kind of people that are going to try to make things better all the time. And so there's always a movement towards having the family tree become more accurate. That's the way that wikis work. It's just human nature to have them work better as time goes on. And actually we're seeing this. The family tree has been up long enough that we're seeing the family tree entries becoming more and more accurate, and more sources being added. Actually, sources are being added in a rather large avalanche of sources coming in all the time. So the program is coming around, but most of the perception of the people who are using the program is somewhat different than the reality of what's going on with the program. So that's the reason for having this type of a class on untangling the mess in the family tree. So first of all, it's a unified family tree. Every dead person is visible to all registered users. You'll notice the word dead. People who are living are not visible to all the users. They're only visible to themselves, or there are some circumstances for people from really previous uploads of the program where a spouse or children might appear. And in fact, some people have some of their children appear and not others, and none of their spouses, none of their children's spouses, and some people don't have their own spouse appear. So that's kind of a catch as catch can, but the way the program's set up presently is that if you're adding in a person who is marked living, no matter when they're living, they're simply not visible to anyone else. They go into what's called a private space around each living user of the program. So for example, if as a living user of the program, I guess the last time I checked I was living, anyway, if I go to the program and enter in another living person, like one of my children, then I have created a duplicate for that child. I've created a unique entry with that person's own ID number. And so if my child also was part of the family tree and had their own entries in the family tree, then I would not really be seeing their entry. I would be seeing the entry that I created. Okay, so if I create somebody who is in fact dead but fail to mark them as deceased, then they will also be in my private space and not be visible to anyone outside of my private space. So if I put in my great-grandmother who is deceased and I mark that she's living, or I fail to mark that she's deceased, then the program will automatically assume that she is living and give her a unique ID. And if there is a duplicate out there, it won't find it. And if there is anything else that I put in, the information I put in about that person, no one else can see it except for me. Now there's one little kind of exception in the program, and that is in the memory section for FamilySearch Family Tree. If I have a memory of a dead person that also shows a living person, and I tag the dead person, then the living person is going to be visible also, because the memory, the photograph, for example, of a living person and a dead person, then the photograph will become discoverable and anybody can see that photograph. In fact, the difference is on the memories is that not only are they discoverable, they're also searchable by Google and other search engines. So if you have a memory up and it includes living people and you don't want them to be searched on the internet, you mark one person in the photo as a deceased, then everyone in that photo will be visible and searchable. So you better, that's kind of an interesting kind of an exception to the rule of having this private space. Okay, so now we know that all the dead people are visible to all registered users. That means I see your family, what you consider to be your family. I see what I consider to be my family. We don't even have to be related. All I have to do is look. I can go look at anybody I want to in the tree. And there are programs out there that will show you, supposedly anyway, your relationship to famous people. Well, that's why, because everyone is visible to everyone. And every registered user can edit, delete, change, or correct all of the entries. So these are the two kind of hallmarks of the type of program that we call a wiki. It's W-I-K-I, wiki. Okay, we're back to FamilySearch. And I'd like to emphasize this point very, very, very strongly. Number one, no matter what there is and what your perception is of the FamilySearch family tree, it is not the problem. It is the solution to the problem. The FamilySearch family tree is basically a very, very operative program. And now there have been problems with the program in the past. One of the major problems was that it was sharing the old new.familysearch.org website and program. And so so what happened is that because the program was being shared, there were certain things that the program, the family tree program, would not do, one of which was to accurately find duplicates, and in many cases you would see notations like cannot be merged at this time and things like that. Well, that was resolved, and the program has now been fixed and is fully operational as of June 27th, 2016. And there's been some more changes to the program since then, but the program itself now is completely functional, and any of these problems that you may have seen in the inability to merge individuals are now completely resolved. So what's the challenge here? What is the challenge? The challenge is we have over 100 years of submissions with no collaboration and no way to check the accuracy. So back in the 1800s, primarily members of the LDS Church, but later a lot of other people, began to submit records to the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints and its organization called the Genealogical Society of Utah. And these organizations began accumulating all of this information. There was eventually millions and millions of records. In 1938, they began the process of digitizing, of microfilming records all around the world, and ended up with about 2.4 million rolls of microfilm and a lot of other records on paper and books and all sorts of things. So all of these records were submitted, and nobody had any way of checking the accuracy. Meanwhile, people were submitting what they called family group records and pedigree charts and things like that. All of those millions and millions of records were accumulating. All of this information went into what's now the FamilySearch.org website. And since that time, since they went into this new the FamilySearch.org website, including the family tree and the historical record collections, the submissions by users, all of those family group records and pedigree charts and things, were never checked for duplicates. So there were lots and lots and lots of duplicates. People in the same family had no way of communicating that they had submitted records more than once, and so they were submitted over and over and over again. In fact, my great grandfather, at the time that they shut down new.familysearch.org, had a little over 800 combined records. That means that he had been submitted at least that many times to the system. And so one of the big challenges initially and still is in getting rid of all the duplicate entries that exist inside of this rather large database. Another thing that created problems with the information was not just the number of duplicates and the degree of accuracy of those duplicates, but the fact that there were actually changing submission standards. So how records were submitted 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years ago is significantly different than the way that we need to have those records formatted today. One of the most, for an example here, one of the most obvious changes that has occurred is when we had paper family group records, the spaces for things like places and names and things were limited. They were just little, spaces on a sheet of paper. So if the name of the place was overly long, then the people were forced to use abbreviations or not put in the correct information completely. So that was once acceptable. In fact, it was required that you abbreviate longer place names. Well, all those abbreviations are now showing up in the FamilySearch family tree. And today, of course, we have no practical limitations for as far as places and dates and things like that. And so all of those abbreviations are needing to be expanded to the full names so that there's no question about the places and the dates that we're talking about. Another problem was over that last 100 years was there was little or no consistency. Sometimes they told everybody to type, put the surnames all in capital letters. Sometimes they told them to use caps. There was all sorts of different formats and different rules for marking whether a person was a twin or whether they were a junior or senior. All of these different kinds of things were changed and varied from time to time. So we now have our own current set of rules, and we'll have this, and we will be working on putting out another webinar in the not too distant future, probably around the first part of December of 2016, on the standards for entering dates and names and places into the family tree. So that's something we're going to follow up with already planned. So here, if you go into the family tree and you choose an individual back a few generations and look at the descendancy view, which is the little icon at the top of the page that looks like two lollipops stacked together, that is the descendancy view, and you'll see the descendants of that person. And as you look closely at this list of people over on the right-hand side, particularly, you'll see a lot of red exclamation point icon type things. All of those exclamation points are serious data problems with the information that's in the family tree. Here's a list of what all those different icons mean, what they are. And you can see the data problems one at the bottom of the first four items as the item that cannot, it is not appropriately in the family tree. And my suggestion, if you're going to start working with the family tree, is maybe you should start where there aren't quite so many red icons before you get, so you get a little bit of practice and understanding on the tree before you jump in and try to solve some of these sometimes intractable problems. Actually, even without the red icons, I recently spent an afternoon of about 4 to 4.5 hours untangling one family with 2 children and merging all the duplicates and correcting all of the information that was available in the family tree for these 2 duplicates and adding in probably 20 or 30 sources for that family of resources that I found online. So, this is a process that's going to take a while. And if you're, basically wondering where to start, is you need to start someplace where there isn't quite so much problems and work your way into them. A lot of these problems, by the way, are solved if you begin a little closer to the present with your with correcting the tree, and by the time you get back to these very obvious problems, they've all been corrected. A lot of those problems, for example, are things like a child born before the mother was born, or a child born after the father or mother died, or children that were born before the parents could have children. It's not unusual for on some of my lines to find a 110-year-old grandmother with a 3-year-old husband who's had 5 children after the age of 110. So, this is the kind of thing that we need to get into and correct. And those are not really the difficult questions, because it's pretty obvious that those are problems. It's when the difficulties are when we have inconsistencies and people in the family tree, for example, in the wrong family, where there are 5 children. In fact, the family only had 4 children, and there's one of the children that does not belong there. That's the kind of thing that's a little more difficult to find when you're working with the tree. So when you get about to this point, you start to ask the question of, why do we care? What's the point of all this? Why are we interested in correcting 100+ years of people piling information into a program we now call the family tree? Well, the answer to this is a little bit complicated, but the real answer is that the family tree becomes and holds the promise, if you will, of being the most valuable resource for maintaining a unified sort of gold standard place to go to find out what work has been done on your family. Before we had the capabilities that we have today with online programs like FamilySearch, Family Tree, we were all kind of isolated genealogists doing our work on our own little piles of paper. And if I were working on my remote ancestor and someone else halfway around the world was working on the same remote ancestor, There was no mechanism that we could go to that would let us both know that we were working on the same people. And not only that, there was no way to collaborate that information once we knew that even if we guessed that somebody out there might be working on that person. So today, what we can see in real time on the FamilySearch family tree is anyone else in the world who is interested and is making or making changes or adding information to the family tree. So why we should care is because we're able to now overcome a very large percentage of the total problems that we've been facing as genealogists for a very long period of time, and some of us for most of our adult life that we've been working on these genealogy programs. And ultimately it comes down to this, is if you're interested in finding about your family, do you really want to work on the wrong family lines? This is happening, by the way, fairly frequently now that we have all of these ways to check and cross-check information, including finding out information about the genetics, the DNA of the people in the family tree. And we have found, and I have talked to people who have discovered that they have been working on the wrong line for years because they did not know the information. So it's a good idea that this is out there. This is really in the nature of a clearinghouse, a place where we're all able to put what we know about our ancestors, and even if we disagree, we can agree to disagree, and then we can, without going to any other location, determine how much work has been done and what is lacking and what kind of information we need to go search for. So this is a great benefit, and it is really changing the way that we do genealogy at all. So the two the two functions here are correcting and sourcing. What that means is we're correcting the information that's there by adding sources, and we're adding sources to verify and to substantiate the information that's there that's already correct. So in the past, there has not been this emphasis on adding source information to to family trees or to our pedigree charts that we had in the past. And today, the standard is that we would like to have everyone put in a source for any change they make to the family tree at all. In addition, what happens now is that these programs, including the family tree and several other large online programs such as Ancestry and MyHeritage and Find My Past and JennyNet and a few others, have what are called research hints. In other words, the program themselves, the programs are developed to automatically go out and search for records. They will look at the records, which are usually been either indexed or transcribed, and search for your ancestors. Anybody who you enter into the family tree will be searched, from you yourself all the way back to whoever far back as your line goes. And these record hints will work much better if the information is correct. Obviously, if it's incorrect, they'll give you a record hint for the incorrect person. So it'd be a good idea to get the correct person in so that you can get accurate record hints. Also, as you work through the problems that are in existence on the family tree, you will automatically find more people to add to the family tree. So if you're doing research and trying to extend your pedigree, one of the best ways to do that is to work through the family tree and correct and source all of the information. And then it just as a matter of course, you will start adding people to the family tree because no one has been able to do this previously. There is a perception out there by some people, especially those who are in a position to have had a lot of their ancestors contributed to the family tree, that their research has been all done. Well, the numbers just simply do not allow that to happen. You have 2 parents, 4 grandparents, 8 great-grandparents, 16, 32, 64, 128, 256, 512, 1,024, 2,048. In other words, every generation doubles at least the number of ancestors that you have, and the number of descendants goes up also geometrically. So you get tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of relatives by the time you've gone back that many generations. So this is a problem that basically you cannot work yourself out of. You can only work yourself into. You have to. The more work you do, the more actual work there is to do, and the more people you will find. It also kind of untangles the family lines, and if you haven't examined the FamilySearch family tree carefully, or if you go in and you're one of those people whose family has never contributed anything, either to any of the major programs that were incorporated, such as the International Genealogical Index, the Ancestral File, the Pedigree Resource File, the membership records of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and the church's temple records. All of those were included. If you don't fall in any of those categories, it's very possible that there isn't that much information about your family in the family tree, and so your lines probably are not tangled. On the other hand, if there are people who have been members of the church for generations, they may find that the information there seems to be overwhelmingly tangled up and messed up. So we just work through it carefully, piece by piece, going back generations at a time, not jumping back and trying to address errors and problems that are many generations in the past. Okay, so let's get started. First of all, obviously, you have to sign into the program, so you'll need a login and a password. The program is open to members of the LDS Church as well as those who are not members. And there's no requirement at all to be a member to use the program. The only difference between the members and the non-members is that there are some things in the program concerning the church's temple ordinances that are not visible to those who aren't signed in with an LDS account. In addition, there are some functions of the program that are available only to members of the church, due to the fact that there are agreements with certain partner programs. The partner programs presently that would be sharing tree data, there's quite a few of those actually, so there's a lot of programs out there. The ones that would view LDS information or church information are limited to the members, plus the arrangement that FamilySearch has with these partners, such as Ancestry and Find My Past and My Heritage and American Ancestors and a few other, and GennyNet and other programs, is that there are benefits to the members of the church which are not available to those who are not members. Okay, so the next step would be to start looking at your section of the family tree. Now, you'll notice that I carefully say your section. That means that what you're looking at is not your family tree, it is the family tree. That means that you're looking at something that everyone else can see also, and your portion of it is simply your portion. It's just simply the part that have your immediate ancestors. And if I needed to or had the information, I could navigate from here to practically to anyone else who was deceased in this entire tree. So the next thing you do after you're looking through the information and getting to familiarize yourself with what's in the family tree is to start looking at the icons. Now, I've indicated in this case a red warning icon, and that would be one thing that you would want to look for. But now, thinking in terms of your relationship to people, if this were my family, which it is, and I was to go back here to William Stewart, who was one of my remote grandparents, and then his parents, and then the parents of his wife, George Sanderson and Margaret Roll, and then the next person back is has a red icon. And as far as I am concerned, and as you should be too, that any time you run into this kind of a situation, you're really at the end of your line until you can resolve whatever it is that's wrong at this point. And sometimes the number of problems and issues with the program can be overwhelming. I really do. I come into people. I talk to people who express the idea that they just say that family tree is just too many problems. They can't handle it, and they're not even going to do anything with it. Well, that's always a choice that you can make. But none of the problems in the family tree are overwhelmingly difficult. They just sometimes feel that way because there are so many of the problems. But if you attack the problems one at a time, the problem of getting past this overwhelmed portion of the family tree is finally reached, and you can start working on it in earnest without feeling like you're being persecuted by the world. Now, one of the ways to do this is to use a third-party application or app or program that runs on the internet, and this is a free program. And but you do have to sign into FamilySearch to use the program. So you start by clicking and signing into FamilySearch. And what this utility does, it's a utility program that finds the problems and everything else that's wrong with the family tree. So rather than you going through and searching blindlessly and perhaps mechanicalistically to try to find the errors in the tree, we have this program called findarecord.com that will automatically go through and search the tree and look for all sorts of different kinds of problems. Then you still have to fix the problems. That isn't going to help you because they find them, but they do go through the process of finding the records by category if you wish to do that, and then you would have the notice of what problems need to be fixed. So here's the options. The question is, what do you want to do? And the choices we'll go here. I'll go through in just a second. Basically, the choices are allowing you to do all of those options at once, or only one at a time. And so you can uncheck the ones that you don't want to work on, and check the ones that you do want to work on. So the first one is called sources, and in this case it's asking you to find whether you want to find a birth record, whether you need to find a death record or marriage record, or whether record hints exist for a person. Now, for example here, if you unclick everything, including all the other check marks and all the other options in the list over there with the different colors boxes, and you only check record hints, then the program is going to be limited specifically to searching for record hints in the family tree. And so then you will find all of the records that you need that have record hints outstanding. So there are any combination of all of the other items that we'll look at here in the next few minutes will be indicated by the check mark, and unchecking that will say that the program can ignore that for the time being. So if you needed to find every person who needed a birth record and had no birth records, then this program would assist you in finding a birth record. Not that they would go out there to the internet and find a birth record, but they would indicate that a record such as a birth record was needed in order for this person to be corrected. The next one are person items, and this is having to do with birth dates, places, death dates and places, and missing names and missing surnames. This is a pretty sophisticated program, and so you can play around with searching for one of these items to see exactly what it is that the program is finding and telling you needs to be fixed. Next is relationships marriage. This goes to those red icons, marriage. However, the purple icons are going to suggest that a couple uh, may have missing children or may need to have children added in. So here you're going to be able to look for people within the entire scope of your database by generation. And I forgot to mention that at the beginning. You get to choose whether or not who the person is you're searching for. So you can put your own name in there and go back up to 26 generations, or you can put the name of some other relative in there and go back that many generations. I would suggest playing around with the program at much lower levels of searching. Not only does it usually take your computer to find that much information on the internet, it might take quite a while, but it's also more than you can do in one session of correction. So I kind of focus on one or two issues, and then have them found and then resolve those. By doing that, I focused on merging all of the duplicates. We'll get to that in just a minute, but I was able to clear all the duplicates out of at least 6 or 7 or 8 generations of my family now, and moving back into the 10th generation. These are problems with the database. These are the red icons that come up. Persons born before their parents, born before there was a marriage, two children too close together, a person who died before they were born, marriage after death, and a possible duplicate. Now, the duplicate issue is the one I would address first, and I would simply uncheck everything on this chart, the sources, person, relationship, and then go in and click on problems and click only on possible duplicates, and that will pull up only duplicate records and allow you to correct those records directly in the family tree. So basically what this program is doing, it is analyzing all of the potential categories of problems there are with the family tree entries, and they're automating the process of getting you into the program and to make the corrections, and then coming back out to the Find a Record program to get additional information, change the parameters so you get a different set of problems to work on. Cleanup is one of the larger areas. We have a problem with identical names and many alternative names. This is kind of an interesting situation. A lot of the people in the family tree appear to have more than one birth name. So you'll have a list, 1 or 2 up to dozens of birth names for an individual in the family tree. Now, obviously, they were born with a name when they were born, and usually they may have one, and they may have 2 variations on the one record name, or 1 or 2 variations. But it's a little bit unusual to find a whole list of different identical birth names. What is actually being shown here is the number of times and the number of different ways that the person's name has been entered into the previous programs, before they were all incorporated into the FamilySearch family tree program. I have found the last one at the bottom, unusual characters in a name, to be one of the more interesting challenges. People put in parentheses, they put in extra commas, they put in all sorts of things, lines and all sorts of things into the entries that makes it virtually impossible for the computer search engine to find records for that particular ancestor. The last one is ordinances, and it will show you when any ordinance is missing or needed by the people who are signed into the program. So if you sign in to your program and start looking at your grandparents and your great-grandparents, and none of them were members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, then it is entirely possible that you would have immediate ordinances to do for those people in the temple. The important thing to understand here when I refer to this is that the members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as Mormons, very strongly believe in life after death, and also believe that certain of the earthly ordinances done during the person's lifetime must be performed for that individual vicariously or by proxy in the temples that have been built by the church, which are separate edifices, separate buildings from their meeting houses or chapels. So this is there is a religious motivation underlying the work done in doing genealogy for those who are members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and it is kind of important when you're working on FamilySearch to at least be aware that that is the situation. Now, you can get started here, and you can change the start person. You really have to select what kind of record, all those things that I showed you, what kinds of problems you want to look at as the very first step. But in order to get started from there, you're going to have to put in a start person. Now, your name is going to appear there automatically if you sign into the program. And then you can look for different categories. So you start with yourself, or you can actually start with any other person. And then you can choose, under this category, you can choose everyone, or your ancestors, or your descendants, or your cousins. So you really have a number of choices of which area of a family tree that you want to look at. And you can choose up to actually 26 generations. Since the time when I uploaded this particular slide, I discovered that what had happened is there's a pull-down menu there, and it's now visible. You can see it when you click on it, but previously it was not. So the program's been, not that it was increased at the time, but now it's more obvious and visible, and you can go up to as many as 26 generations back. That would be quite a challenge, even to take one line back 26 generations, but I'm sure there's plenty of people that have done that. Okay, now we're going to give some examples, or I will give some examples here of all of the possibilities. So my suggestion is that on the Find a Record program that you turn off all of the options except for one or two. So it's too hard to work with all different kinds of problems at once. Maybe you'll enjoy that and you just let it go and do its thing, but it's much easier if you click off all of the things that you're not wanting to work on at the moment. What you'll find actually is that as you get into the entries, that if you have an attitude to edit them and to make the information more accurate and properly formatted, then it's mainly like picking up a piece of paper that you see on the ground as you're walking along, or picking up a can and putting it into a recycling bin. So it's kind of the kind of housekeeping kinds of things that you can do that will keep the family tree getting more and more accurate at all times. So by turning off those exceptions, you can make a choice. So here I've turned off everything except possible duplicate persons. So that means the program is now only going to look for duplicates within the parameters that I show on the family tree. And let it do its thing. I don't have to click or start or do anything. It just automatically starts looking for any duplicates back as many generations as I've specified. In this case, it came up with 2. I'm not generally surprised that even though I have worked for some time at removing all the duplicates, that duplicates are still appearing from time to time. And the main reason for this happening is that the One is that changes are being made to the program, and it's very possible that somebody added in a duplicate entry for either of these two of my grandfathers, great-grandfathers. But the real reason is that as we correct and add information to the family tree, that more and more duplicates may be found. It seems very, like I said the other day, I spent 4.5 or more hours straight just merging every records on a family that ended up having a husband and wife and 2 or 3 children at the most. Okay, so here I would click on that person's number down there, the ID number, the KWJVGC7 number, and that would take me to look at that person in the FamilySearch family tree out of this program and into the tree. The first step is to click on the individual, their picture, and then that will separate them out from all the other people on the family tree, and you'll start to see information, specific information about that person. So now what we're going to do is look at the ID number up there. If we click on that ID number, it will take us directly to the FamilySearch family tree and show us this person, so we could see the entry, that person's descendants, or the entry for anybody that we were related to from that person. So clicking there takes me to this Ovi Christian Overson's detail page. Quite a bit of information on there, and they're saying there's some duplicates, so we're going to go down here and look for duplicate descendants or cousins, and you click there to see if there's a duplicate, and once you do, it says possible duplicates for Ovi Christian Overson, and then it says review the match. So there's one person that this Ovi Christian Jensen is supposed to be a match for Ovi Christian Overson. So we go to this and we find out that it's not a match for that descendant or cousin. So I can just look at that and we know it's not, because his name could be Ovi Christian Jensen. But when we get into it, we find out that they don't match, and so I'm looking at the places. They were quite a ways apart, and one of the things that's important here was looking at the birthplaces for these people, because the names in Danish records are very, very similar. So here's another example. Here's an example if I checked everything except many alternate names. In this case, I go to the first person. We go back and fixed. Now I'm going to go back and fix Ovi Christian Overson and mark him fixed, and go on to the next problem in the thing and find a person born before their parents. In this case, there's 2 instances of a person of problems that were loading different problems for the program, and we can always check to see if the problem exists. That's very important that we look at the entries as they come up and find out if it really exists, because it may be apparent, or think the computer program may have decided that there is a problem, but in the case, for example, of Jen's the Overson family that I looked at, there was no problem. So the benefits of working through the problems, why would we want to go through this process? Well, the number one reason is you get greater accuracy in the family tree. All of these sort of inherited problems that have come about as a result of work being done over the years. It's not necessarily, the issue isn't necessarily that the work done was wrong or that it was poorly done. The research is probably good and the basic information is good. But because of all those reasons I outlined at the beginning, what we have in the family tree turns out to be unworkable from the standpoint of the computers and the standards that are now in effect for entering information into the family tree. And as I've mentioned at least once or twice previously, this process that we go through finds additional people to add to the family tree. It's just inevitable that as you correct all of this information, that you will find more people that need to be found and need to have the information entered into the family tree, which most of the time is done by the program itself as you go through and add records and sources. It also clarifies relationships. In many instances in the family tree, we've come to what are called end of lines of people where we can no longer go back in time. And today, with the records that we have available, we can go back much further in a lot of cases than any of our other relatives could have done even a few years in the past. So with the additional records being added to the FamilySearch.org website and the other websites out there, there are a lot more records readily available for finding and sourcing the individuals. And my suggestion in this whole thing is just to keep working. It's not a situation where you're ever going to get finished. It just is never going to end up being finished. You may actually work through, like I have, work through a few levels of generations and get rid of all the duplicates. But what I found is that every time I go back to the program, I find more duplicates. So it's going to take a while for all of us to correct the information in the family tree. And remember what I said at the beginning, and that is that the FamilySearch family tree program is the solution, not the problem. The problem that we're seeing here is a problem with the entries in the data that was done over that extended period of time without any particular consistency or accountability. Now, if we go here and we look here, we'll see people for other problems with the same person. In this case, we see the one that I pointed out earlier a moment ago, more names, additional names. In this case, here's birth name and 2 different married names. This is duplicate information. It's already built into the system to have the person's birth name, unless there are records that actually show that a person had more than one way of spelling their name or one way that their name was in existence. It's also not if the person has a husband or a wife or a spouse, to use the generic term, then you can put that information into this format, but is sort of duplicative because you're also already going to enter in the fact that the person was married and the name of the person to whom they were married. And unless there's some very strange reason, we don't need to put in a married name because it's already there, because it's already the husband's surname in the case of the United States. Where this would come up is if the wife's name after marriage was not the same as her husband's name. Now, what does that mean? Well, if, for example, in Latin American countries, the women do not change their names to the husband's surname. They just simply add that name on to the existing names that they have lined up. So here we can put in the term that this repetition of what's called the birth name is just a duplicate or is inaccurate. And we're working here with our descendants or cousins. So we can go ahead and fix all the problems. We can delete this particular duplicate name because it's up there in the data right above this in the family tree entry. And I guess my way that I would proceed here is to focus on the areas or the parts of the family tree that are less traveled. It's pretty inviting or enticing to go into the family tree and look back and see that Uncle Roscoe back 20 generations is missing, and we ought to go look for Uncle Roscoe. But what we really need to be doing at this point is starting much closer to the present, and starting in looking for the people who are our immediate ancestors. When we run out of that pool of immediate ancestors and we're starting to look at more remote ancestors and other levels of ancestors, including the descendancy levels, then that would qualify us to move back a little bit further and start looking at a little bit more remote people who may not be quite as easy to find. And the answer to that is, if you go through this process, you will find new people. So correcting and sourcing the family tree is, from my actual experience, is a almost guaranteed process of finding new people to add to the tree. Now, in any statement like that, it's likely that somebody will come up and say, "Nah, I don't agree. I did this, and I've been adding and adding, and I'm not finding anything at all." Well, the answer is that everyone has a different background. Everybody has a different role in the family tree, and where mine is has many people, others have few people, and in a sense, they haven't. In some cases, they have an easier way to go about finding people who are not in the family tree. But in my case, it is usually some very technical thing in descendancy view or way back in a pedigree view that requires my analysis and all of the research skills that I can bring to looking for people in the temple, for our temple ordinances, and also for finding new people in the family tree altogether. Okay, well, thanks for watching today. I remind you that this has been a BYU Family History Library webinar, and that the webinars will be uploaded to the BYU Family History Library YouTube channel, and you can subscribe to that channel and I would invite you to do so. And thank you again for watching.
Great. Well, thank you very much, James. We actually have a question for you real quick. And if there are any other questions, feel free to write those into the chat box now. But Pat Harmon asks, is there a difference between the green and the turquoise temple icons?
Yes, there is. The turquoise, there's actually 3 levels of temple icons. The green icons mean there is a possible available temple ordinance. It does not mean that there actually is one. When you get working through all the possible duplicates that don't immediately show up and doing research and entering in sources, it may ultimately disappear. But usually there are no duplicates, and in a lot of cases there are none, because the program is now searching for duplicates rather effectively. And then there is a sort of a orangey colored icon that means that there is a lack of information. There's not enough information to determine whether or not ordinances are available. And then there's a purple icon or darker colored blue icon, and that means the names have been reserved for temple ordinances already. Any other questions out there?
All right. Well, thank you all very much for coming to today's webinar. And we especially thank James for his preparation for today's presentation and all that he brings to the BYU Family History Library webinar series. Like James says, we'd like to remind you to subscribe to our YouTube channel and also follow us on our other social media accounts on Facebook and also on Twitter. And we encourage everyone to go look at our schedule for the upcoming webinar so you can join us next time, and we will see you then.